The beautiful thing about tests is they mean that your manifestation is orbiting you. Literally, the universe is dangling a carrot in front of you to ask you, will you settle for low self-worth behavior that you used to settle for in the past? Or are you going to step into your worth and align with your manifestation? From To Be Magnetic, this is the Expanded Podcast with your host, Lacy Phillips. As the leading destination for neural manifestation, we dispel the woo-woo in order to help you create real, tangible results based on neuroplasticity, psychology, epigenetics, and energetics. Our goal is to normalize the practice of manifestation and empower you to get into the driver's seat of your life in order to manifest the experiences, relationships, and things that most align with your authenticity. Part of our manifestation process entails expanding past your limiting subconscious beliefs. Therefore, by tuning into this podcast with interviews from experts, thought leaders, spiritual teachers, scientists, and those with neural manifestation success stories, you're starting the process of expanding your subconscious in order to see to believe that anything you desire is possible. And by pressing play, the process begins.
Welcome back to another episode of Expanded. Jessica here. We have another fantastic episode for you guys today. One of the things after we completed the manifestation challenge that everyone said was coming up for them, aside of having tons of manifestations come through already, was tests. We've talked about tests before, and we have an explained around tests that we will link in the show notes as well. But we really wanted to break down for you why tests are such a good thing when it comes to manifestation, why it means that your manifestation is close to you, and what are some ways that you can really start to pattern read and understand what type of test is coming through and what this means for how you should navigate it. We also coined two new terms, a boundary test, which in the past kind of filtered under the triggers category, but it's another energetic style of test, and also a bridge test. So a bridge that is a test. We'll go into all of that fun stuff. We're leaving you off with some brand new journal prompts and suggestions of how to navigate your tests in the next coming week. You can take inventory of all of them that are going on. And I'm helping Daniel navigate one test that's coming up for him right now with career stuff. And one thing to keep in mind, which we wind up touching on in this episode, but really doubling down on what is this test asking me to move past on. You know, opportunity, a lot of times it's like, I don't want to settle for the thing that I settled for in the past. But when we're having those emotional triggers or a boundary test comes up, someone's crossing a boundary, what is that core root belief that it's saying, okay, in the past, if we believed that limiting belief, we would have not passed this and we would have run through the fire, whatever. But now that we're trying to reprogram that limiting belief, what would that opposite version? How would we navigate this? How can we pass this test with ease? And how can we help heal that belief that's rooted deep down in there? So there's so much in here. I know you guys are going to love it. Let us know in the community group how you guys are navigating and moving through these tests. And we hope you have a very magnetic week. Enjoy.
And now a word from our partners. So I have a funny mini manifestation story for you. You've heard Jessica and I both talking about blue blocks. What a beautiful story that we came to partner together. Within that, this is actually really cute because I'm one of those bedside readers. I love to read before bed to help me just really sink into quiet, calm, relaxed, and ready for sleep. However, I'm crazy. Speaking of Blue Blocks, you can listen to the 2 episodes I have with founder Andy Mant, where we talk about why I don't have any lights on in the bedroom in the evening. I only have candlelight. And so to read, it's really, really hard in candlelight. So I've been Googling actually for months and months, incandescent reading lamp, like a book reading lamp, the ones that you can clip to your book and read with, and nothing comes up. And I'm like, why has somebody not invented this during this time? And then totally out of nowhere, founder Andy Mant shipped me one of their new products, which is their Lumi Clip Sleep Plus, which is exactly that. It's a rechargeable 100% blue and green light free little book clip light that houses their Sleep Plus technology. So not only does this allow me to read perfectly fine now, but it also doesn't provide any sleep disrupting blue and green light. It's flicker free, 0 EMF. And on top of it all, it gives off a warm and relaxing campfire feel, just like the candle that's burning by my bedside. And so now I can actually read by the bedside. And literally when I opened this up, completely unexpected, didn't know it was coming to me, didn't know they had invented this. I opened it and I was like, thank you, universe. So it was a total mini manifestation. And I wanted to share that with you. It's only a $29 product. So if you're anything like me and you're a candle lighter, you would probably be lit up about that. And the really cool thing from Blue Blocks now is that they have the Lumi Lamp Sleep Plus. So for any of us who have become a cult following of the Lumi Lamp Clip Plus, now it's an actual lamp that sits on your nightside table. And the coolest thing is that it's under $60. So go ahead and check out www.blueblocks.com/pages/magnetic. The discount of 15% will automatically be added to your order, or use the code all caps magnetic, MAGNETIC, for 15% off your order. So things have gotten pretty hippie in Topanga. Back when I lived in Echo Park, I had a pretty decent edible garden, but Teddy has re-inspired me to go to the 9th degree. So we have a massive garden structure that we built to plant our biodynamic garden, and we are seeding with the new moon and, harvesting with the full moon. And my beets are already coming up, my beans are coming up, my chard's coming up, kale, I'm planting in succession. All of this to say that I really, really have the goal to set Teddy's foundation of her microbiome to be as powerful as it can be within my control of the toxicity that we live in today's age. That's why I've been really committed and privileged enough to breastfeed her through all of the challenges that I've gone through, which have been many, and you've heard about it on this podcast. It's also why I began taking Seed probiotic. As you know from hearing me talk about them before, that our marketing director, Grace, introduced us to Seed. She's been taking it for ages. She's seen profound results. So when it came time to enrich my milk and help with Teddy's gas, I was like, I've got to get on a probiotic via my doulas, and Seed was obviously the gold standard to turn to, because it is just that. It's the gold standard within the probiotic world. Things that I really appreciate about Seed is that it has a 100% survival rate, meaning that it absolutely gets down to your gut to colonize it, whereas competitors have about a 20% survival rate. Their advisory board is chock with some of the most profound scientists, Dr. Gregory Reed being one of them. He's actually the chief scientist that coined the word probiotic. So safe to say, everybody at TBM is using Seed probiotics and their monthly subscription. We're incredibly proud of it. We are beyond proud to be partnered with them. If you are interested in trying their probiotic, you'll receive 15% off the first month by going to the link below, and that's at seed.com. And using the code CAPS TBM and the number 15. Again, that's TBM 15. All right, on to the episode.
So we are starting out and testing out a new format with some of the episodes. We really go into the depth of a different manifestation theme in the explained. But this one, we wanted to break down a certain theme and then give you guys very clear examples, kind of like bringing back everyday energetics, but in really tangible ways and breaking it down round table style. So you guys had so many questions post the manifestation challenge about tests. Lacy, I don't know about you, but have you felt like you've had so many tests this past week or the past few weeks?
No, I did a lot close, like when we were deep in the challenge. And I think that's why we wanted to cover this, is because so many people were getting momentum going, right? The moment you start doing this work, especially with DI work, the moment you get that going, you're doing something right. Tests are popping up, and we kept seeing that in our community group. So we're like, let's cover tests. But no, personally, I haven't had a ton. I mean, in different ways, I guess, but I wouldn't see them as tests. We'll get into that more personally, what's been going on with me. I think they've been more of like signs for me of what I need to do. Less tests, more of pings, if you will.
Ooh, I like that. So this episode, we're going to cover why tests mean that your manifestation is close. And so kind of just going back to that idea of when we start DIs, all these tests starts popping up. Why is that? How can we explain to people out there that this is a good thing, that they are on the right track, that things are starting to shake loose? People will just craft their list and all of a sudden they're getting tests already. What is going on energetically when that is happening?
So basically, the moment that you start consciously or unconsciously calling something in, you start creating energy. That's where the universe is like, cool, let's dance, is the way I like to put it. And so it can come from casting your list, as you said. It can come from setting a boundary, because, the moment that we set a boundary, we're communicating energetically to the universe that we're in our worth, and we're stepping into our worth deeper, that our authentic, whole, worthy selves matter more than anything. And that's all that I believe the universe's intention is for us, is to get back into our true, whole, and worthy self. So people can experience tests from those two realms. They can experience tests if they jump off of a cliff. That's humongous, right? You're jumping into your worth. And so therefore, there is a ripple effect from that, energetically communicating to the universe exactly what I just said. So may it be many a things you do, you can start to create tests. And so the beautiful thing about tests is they mean that your manifestation is orbiting you. And depending on how big the tests are, or the patterns, which is a collection of tests together that are all connected. So depending on how big to small they are, that's how far to close. The bigger the test, the closer your manifestation is to you. And when we say closer or further, it just means the other two components of the trifecta of this process are unblocking and aligned action, or stepping into your worth, or expansion. So the test piece really fits into that aligned action, stepping into your worth. And so when you start to feel things coming up for you, and we can get into that, I think is a really good thing. What do tests feel like? We can get into that in a moment. But once they start happening, it means that literally the universe is dangling a carrot in front of you to ask you, will you settle for low self-worth behavior that you used to settle for in the past? Or are you going to step into your worth and align with your manifestation? So tests are actually a really beautiful thing. Even though they can feel complicated or annoying or tough when they present, I actually get really excited when tests come around, because I'm like, oh, okay, I'm getting close, especially if it's a big and a hard one. The hardest being a rock bottom, of course. And the beauty of a rock bottom, which we have many episodes that we'll link below, when we're in one of those, which could be seen as the greatest test, when we're in one of those, it means that something wants to connect with us very quickly, but we haven't raised our self-worth fast enough to connect with it. So we're literally being rock bottom forced into this quick up-leveling to connect with our manifestation. So tests are amazing. Let's reframe that. When they happen, yes, they can be hard, scary, uncomfortable, something you don't even want to deal with. It can be all of those things, but the only reason they're happening is because the universe is so excited to connect you with your manifestation.
I think that is such an important reframe, because people get so bummed out, they feel bogged down, they feel energetically maybe depleted if they're getting bombarded with tests, and just having that remembering and reframe, wait, this means that what I'm desiring is close. Okay, I can hold out, push through, work on my self-worth, continue this work, and see through to the other side.
Agreed. It's really the best.
So there's really two types of tests. I think people get this confused a lot too. Opportunities and triggers. So many times people are like, I have triggers, I don't have tests. It's like, well, triggers are tests. They're in the same category. So the opportunities are like the dangling carrot situations. It's really something that's a physical situation that's happening around you. Basically, it's saying, are you going to settle for the same low self situation you have in the past? It could appear as almost everything on your list, minus one or two key items. And we usually settle for these in the past because we don't trust that something better is coming through. So an example of this might be you're calling in a new job and a job opportunity presents and it's really, really close to what you want, except for they are not even close on the salary. That would be an example of an opportunity test. What are some other opportunity tests that you've seen or come across?
Dating opportunity. You are on a dating app and all of a sudden something that's very close to your list starts to reach out to you or you match with them. Job opportunity. That's another version. So, if you're out on the market looking for jobs, there's also living opportunity. So, you're out looking for a home or a new apartment or whatever, and a new opportunity presents that is very far from your list or very close to your list. That's what I would call a smaller test versus a larger test. The closer to your list, the bigger it is. It means it's the closer you are to your actual manifestation. So those are examples of opportunities.
And then triggers are basically your emotional and egoic reaction to something. So this doesn't have to be directly associated with what you're manifesting, but essentially it's questioning your worth in some way, shape, or form. And it's asking you to take a look at that to integrate and basically up-level your self-worth. So triggers could look like fighting with your partner, or feeling slighted at work, or, having a day of kind of self-shame or self-sabotage, like all of these things that we emotionally do, those would be those trigger points.
And I would even say sometimes they differ. So we can even call this another version of a test is a boundary test. I think those are super common. Sometimes they can bleed into the trigger realm. That's a huge one. Your boundary being impeded on, or somebody crossing a boundary you didn't even know that you had, whether it's an emotional boundary, a physical boundary, a money boundary. You know what I mean? I could see that also. We could even coin that as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We'll definitely add that. And the one thing is, like, sometimes, I don't know why this example is coming to me right now, but this idea of someone, let's say, getting a flat tire in their car and having to pull off the side of the road and being really bummed about it. Would that be opportunity, trigger? What about when it's a physical thing that falls in maybe multiple categories? Because let's say the opportunity was getting to work on time or having an easeful day, it would be fully trigger.
I think it would be fully trigger. Yeah. We could also call those something else because they do appear a lot. A tree falling on my tent. Like, those things happen. Traditionally, they ramp up around Mercury retrograde, which we're in right now. But we could maybe even call those something else. However, I tend to see those personally as a trigger because it's what it elicits inside of me. Definitely not an opportunity, because an opportunity is like a new opportunity being presented to you. So those usually come, like we mentioned in the realm before, like career, home, partnership. It could be a couch, or whatever. Like these are more opportunity based. Whereas I would see that being more of, we could call it unexpected. I don't know, but I would say trigger is what I would energetically put that under.
So then the triggers can have an emotional reaction, which is just from you, but it could also be an emotional reaction based off of a really annoying physical thing that may have happened.
Exactly.
I think a lot of people have been facing those recently, and it might be Mercury retrograde going on right now. But I've definitely got a lot of DMs of people like, I lost this, I got scammed, or this happened, or I got hacked, or I lost this in the mail, or all of these sort of like physical things coming up. And the question in any of these tests is, how am I going to navigate this from, my highest version of self-worth?
I mean, should we cover how to spot a test? Because I think that helps people a lot. And then we can also really cover what do tests feel like. How to spot a test, we have it really clearly outlined in the work. It's number one, does it impede on a boundary you've set for yourself? So that's kind of getting back to that experience of, say, all of a sudden you've decided that you are going to no longer date emotionally unavailable people. And then your entire list presents itself, everything you put on it, but they're not looking for partnership. They're just looking to hook up. That is a boundary that is being impeded on. Another example of that could be like the most recent that I've had this come up are with contractors, where they start to overstep the boundaries that I've set. They're overcharging, they're not coming in on time, they're manipulating and saying that the problem was because of us instead of they're getting out of their own problems that they've created. So that's number one, you can ask yourself, does it impede on a boundary that you've set for yourself? Number two, a way to spot a test, do you feel shame or embarrassment around it? An example of that, again, getting back to dating, could be you've matched with this person and you're starting to date them and see them. However, there's an aspect that you know that you're feeling some shame about. Could even go back to the example I gave before, that you have continued to date them because they're your entire list, but they've said openly they're not looking for partnership. They just want to hook up, and you feel some shame and embarrassment about that. Maybe you're even telling people, oh, that's what I'm looking for as well. But inside, you know that you're looking for something, more serious. That would be a way to spot a test for sure. And then the third way is, does it make you feel like you're settling, or does it make you feel small? And we could start to use these throughout the examples that we give, later in this episode, so that it feels a little bit more definite to people. Yeah, does it make you feel small? That's a really good way to tell that this could be a test.
And I think too, when you're coming up against some of these difficult situations, it's going to be really clear. You'll kind of can tell from the questions what type of test you're facing. The boundary question, is it a boundary test? Shame or embarrassment, that's probably trigger. It could be opportunity, but does it feel settle or small? That's definitely, I guess it could be both opportunities and triggers. But you'll start to put in patterns of like, okay, what type of test is this and how can I navigate it? Do you find when people are closer to their manifestation, there's a theme on the type of test that comes through? Is it more opportunity and then it moves more trigger and then more boundary?
Well, that gets into sort of pattern work, which I think is, we're always trying to inspire people to look at and start to learn how to read their energetics and patterns. I tend to feel that most often than not, test will play on your deeper insecurities, especially the closer you get to something. So I can maybe openly give an example of this. A girlfriend of mine who's an actress has been voice noting me back and forth for the last 3 days. I got to watch her audition video today even.
Oh my goodness.
But basically, she got this role that would be under, an actress that she's obsessed with. It's an A-list actress we know. It's a new series. It's 10 episodes. And here are the kickers. Like, it's a lot of things on her list, but it's a lot less than her episode rate that she would want. And then she just moved to New York and she's so stoked there and feeling the energy, just sold a script of her own, like a lot of momentum's happening for her. But she would have to move and live in Baton Rouge for 6 months, half of her year, while she's writing this show and show running this other show. So there are a couple of things there. And when I'm going back and forth with her, I'm having to suss out with her, is this a bridge or not? Really getting into her subconscious. Does she truly believe that she can have all of this in New York for more money? Is she expanded enough for that? Because if she is, then this is very clearly a test. And most importantly, it's really preying on her deeper insecurities of finance. And then for her to feel like an inspired artist, she usually has to be in a cool, hip scene to feel that inspiration. And so it's preying on those two things. And so we get to look at that together. And I would say that it's definitely a test because it is preying on those two very, very specific things. And so if we were to break down this in general from what we've learned so far, this is an opportunity test, period. It's an opportunity test. And then you get to look at the examples there. How do we spot that it's a test? So if we go back to the things that we just covered, does it impede on a boundary you've set for yourself? Do you feel shame or embarrassment around it? Does it make you feel like you're settling? And so for her, I know this about her personality. A boundary she set for herself is to be in New York and make a certain amount of money from whatever she's working on. It impedes on those. And then I can already tell with her, it's starting to make her feel a little bit of shame and embarrassment because she's like, oh my God, and I'm looking at the houses out there. And she's going to feel not as in her worth as she would otherwise. So looking at that, how to spot a test, it's a really good example. And now getting back to something to really learn about your own process is it preying on your deeper insecurities? And for her, that's finance and being a hip creative artist, and it is.
And so that deeper insecurity is the thing that's going to make you feel small or like you're settling because you're going back to an insecurity that you're trying to overcome.
Exactly. And to get back at what you were talking about before, that's a great way to start to read your patterns. If you've been doing this work for a period of time, certainly the daily practice, you're starting to really understand what your true shadows are and your true insecurities. It's just what shadow is, the things you feel shame about. That's going to be so helpful to understand about yourself, and you'll have it all in your journal. So when tests start to present, as you're learning more about the process of tests, knowing what your insecurities are they being preyed upon? Because if they are being preyed upon, it's very clearly a test. And there's usually some sort of pattern happening there that you get to look at.
So when you're faced with the test, we kind of, based off of our spotting the test questions, right when you're facing the test, you can sort of ask yourself these questions to really know how to navigate and what steps to take next. So the first one we have, is it a hell yes or a hell no? That's kind of like a cliche thing you hear a lot in the spiritual community, but it's really checking in with your gut and yourself and what is your initial hit. Maybe you need a second to sit with it before that answer becomes clear, but either way, you will have an inner knowing of what you're really called to do in that situation.
I was going to say too, I think what's really helpful to have, and again, we talked about this in a prior episode that we will link, especially when you're going through these questions, I think it's really pivotal to have your authentic code, whether it's in the very first page of your journal, you have it hung up at your desk or whatever, because that very specific question that is cliche, we hear it all the time in spirituality or self-help, is it a hell yes or hell no? When you can look at those 4 pillars of your authentic self, it's very clear if something's a hell yes or a hell no.
And then, is it crossing a boundary you're set for yourself? We really covered that one. Checking in, do you feel the shame, embarrassment, small, or settling? And then your next question would be, is this preying upon an insecurity or a shadow? So just like in the example Lacy gave, when she looks at, okay, part of the thing that I'm working through is, needing to be in New York to be seen and a financial insecurity. And this is going against those two things. It would be falling back into a settling pattern around it instead of just owning what the next phase or chapter, what she authentically desires in money and both surroundings. And then the final step is to take action in alignment with your highest self-worth. So this a lot of times involves journaling, DI work, going back in, doing the test or the triggers DI, and really assessing, let me take a moment from this test. What action do I need to put in place in order to align with my highest self-worth version? And sometimes, kind of what you were getting at before, Lacy, is if your friend was not expanded enough to do that, she might not pass the test. And she might have to run into the fire and go on this trip to really learn what she doesn't want to settle for next time. But ideally, you would be working towards a version where you are expanded and unblocked and taking action in alignment with that highest self-worth.
Well, I think a really important thing to note here to make this so simple for everybody who's doing this work, we always say this and I'll continue to until it's, really imprinted in everybody's subconscious, but there are only three true steps that have to be in motion in this process. You have to be unblocked enough, expanded enough, and taking the aligned action, which is what this falls into, in order to manifest. All three have to be energetically unanimous. They have to be in motion together. So we always make the example of if you're doing all the unblocking and then you're emailing us and you're like, why isn't my manifestation coming through? We're like, cool. Have you been out on the ground? Have you been expanding? Are you expanded enough? And have you actually been taking action? So that's really important. And so the beautiful thing is, like, let's get back to my friend in that example. The questions she has to ask herself, because she does this work, is, are you unblocked enough and expanded enough? Because if you are, then you can pass this test. But let's say, for instance, she isn't either of those. Let's just say she created crazy magnetism, which I told her she would do because she had lived in the same apartment for 10 years in Los Angeles, has been wanting to move to New York forever. And so she's a very magnetic person. She jumped off the cliff, moved to New York, and then she did all of these, jumping off of cliffs to get into this crazy loft that was like a little bit out of her comfort zone. So much magnetism, situational magnetism builds from that, doing all of that. So it wouldn't be crazy for this opportunity to come to her. But in that process, let's say she hasn't been unblocking or expanding, she isn't in the best position to, quote, pass this test, because by passing, saying no to it, it doesn't ensure that the next series that's now in New York for the price she wants is going to come around. And that's another really important thing to look at in your process if you are being faced with an opportunity test. Have I unblocked and expanded enough to receive this test and say no? Or did I create a lot of situational magnetism like she may have, and I need to do the unblocking piece and the expansion piece? And so I'll go back to this example. If she isn't unblocked enough, what that could look like, she hasn't done the money workshop. So it hasn't done the groundwork in her subconscious to truly, truly feel deserving of the money she wants to make in a series. That's one example of it. Maybe let's say she hasn't done inner child recently or shadow. So she hasn't done the real work to address if her needing to be in a hip, interesting city to feel inspirational, maybe that's just ego and shadow. That's why she's doing that. So if she hasn't addressed those two pieces that a test could be preying on her insecurities, she's not unblocked enough for the true manifestation to come through. Let's say on top of that, which I do know she's expanded enough because I know all the projects and people she's worked with, but let's say she has never been in a position where she has seen to believe that it's possible to have this series in New York for the certain amount of money that she wants. So if those two pieces of the trifecta aren't totally positioned and she says no to this, she will therefore not potentially bring in the manifestation, the ultimate one she wants. This will be called what I would term a bridge test. Like, we can make that up. I would say that this is a bridge test that is there to show her that she, A, can make a certain amount of money, B, can do it, may not be the place she wants to be in quite yet, living and working, but it's going to really expand her enough to be ready for that. Plus, making whatever this figure is going to really make her feel prepared after doing all of the hard work and sacrificing 6 months of her life of what she truly is deserving of to work in New York, et cetera. So I just want to make that key point that if you don't have the full trifecta in motion and you've created a lot of situational magnetism and you say no to pass a test, it does not mean that you're going into a magic dark at all. So I just really want to beat that home to people that it is so important when you are being tested and it's preying on insecurities. Those are your clues to look at. Cool. Have I really dealt with these insecurities enough? You know what? I'm going to pop in tonight and do in the daily practice the test DI to see. I'm going to do the inner child shadow DI to see inside of the daily practice. I just want to totally make sure that I've addressed these two insecurities enough that are being preyed upon. Then after that, I'm going to go into the expander DI to see if I'm truly expanded enough for the ultimate opportunity I want. And if all of those check and they're yes, it means that this test is a final darky test. It's a big, big test that's asking, are you ready to fully step into the worth of what you want? And you're unblocked enough and expanded enough to receive. Because if you are and you pass this, you're going to connect with it. However, if those check out to be no, it's important to do that groundwork before you quote unquote pass this test. I just want to make that example because it's really important to reading your own energetics and patterning in this process. So I'm quickly interrupting this episode to invite you, if you're ready to start your manifestation journey, or if anything you've heard in our manifestation episodes has piqued your interest to begin. We have a la carte workshops in everything from the basics bundle, which is what we recommend to everyone who starts. It's the formula that actually teaches you how to manifest, unblocked inner child, and unblocked shadow. We also have a la carte workshops on love and money. But the real gem is the Pathway membership because it encompasses every single workshop we have. It's a year-long membership with full access to the few a la carte offerings we have and exclusive workshops not available anywhere else, such as the daily practice, which is what everybody in the Pathway uses, hopefully at least 3 times a week to daily, in order to truly create the new neural pathways that one needs in order to manifest, and houses the library of our deep imaginings, which is our unique hypnosis process that allows you to get into your subconscious and overwrite those old neural pathways, creating the new ones. You can use our special code EXPANDED, all caps, EXPANDED, to receive $20 off your first a la carte workshop purchase or $20 off your first month of the Pathway. Again, that's all caps, EXPANDED, EXPANDED. Okay, now back to the episode.
So let's say she looked at it and she wasn't expanded and unblocked enough fully, but she still wanted to say no to quote unquote pass the test. Would her next phase be getting tested again, questioning if she was unblocked or expanded enough before something even bigger might come through?
So basically in that case, say the person still wants to say no. Say they've created all of the situational magnetism and they are like, no, I know that this is a test, so I'm going to say no, rather than looking at it as a bridge opportunity. While they're unblocking and expanding, there's a really good chance that they'll have to do quite a bit of unblocking and expanding to call in the exact opportunity that they want, and they will be tested again. So in this case, let's say I was working with this person, I would say, if the other things don't check out, I'd be like, this is your bridge opportunity because you're not expanded and unblocked enough for the ultimate to come through. And I would say, take it. Or if I felt like the unblocking and expansion were just right at their fingertips, right there, I would say, pass this test, work on those things. Your next thing's going to come right away. So it really just comes down to pulling in that manifestation, creating that. We have a great episode on this, how to see manifestation results. You have to start to understand and feel the energy of dancing with the universe, of how truly close you are to being fully unblocked to the thing. And when I say fully unblocked, it doesn't mean that all of your inner child, issues are gone and your shadow's gone. It just means in ratio to this very specific test that's preying on these insecurities. How integrated do you feel? If you're like a quarter of an inch away energetically from being totally integrated, you're very close. And you could do that, potentially that groundwork, while, like in this example, let's say her lawyers and managers are going back and forth. That takes a couple of weeks. potentially, if she's so close and she just needs just a little bit more unblocking, she could do it during that time if she like really hits the DIs and doing the groundwork. And usually in that case, the universe will start to send you the little pieces you're needing because you're so close to your manifestation. And what that can look like are expanders out of nowhere, mini manifestations out of nowhere, just to give you crumbs that you're on the right track. So I also like to say that it's totally based on how far away are you from being, in this example, totally integrated on those unblocking needs or expansion needs. If it's so close, in theory, you could probably do that in the time that you're negotiating this opportunity. If it's pretty far, like these are some deep shadow wounds, and you have just created a lot of situational magnetism, I would personally deem that this is a bridge test. Like it's really here to bridge you. Another example of that, what that can look like is when you've been dating and again, you've called in this list, it's so close to everything you want. And you guys haven't established yet if there is one piece that's totally impeding on your boundary, but you have a feeling like it may end up in that direction. There's that space to play with while you're in that relationship and looking at this relationship like, oh my gosh, this is a massive expansion for me. I've never been with someone that has checked A, B, C, D, E, F, G boxes for me. I'll give an example of this just to make it a little bit more clear. A dear friend reached out who's in this space, and she's been dating somebody who is literally every box, but she's successful and she has reached a certain level of success where this person she's dating is saying, like, budget is an issue for me. And when we broke down the energetics together, which is a new tiny little body of work that may come out of this exact example, but I was really giving her the example of, well, she was asking me, she was like, is it possible he's not as ambitious as I am? And I'm a very ambitious person, and that's what I'm attracted to, but he covers every other box I've been looking for. And I said, there are two wounds you have to look at. And one of the wounds is if it's somebody who's grown up around wealth and they've never had it, those are the type of people that build massive ambition and find a lot of monetary success. However, if he's somebody who grew up around a lot of wealth and he saw it to be kind of the, a prison, or it ends up making everybody unhappy or whatever, has created a lot of these blocks, those people tend to run away and they need a lot more unblocking before they'll find that they can be wealthy actually doing the things that they love, or that it won't imprison them, etc. Basically, what I needed to let her know is you can have the entire piece. You can have all of the boxes checked, plus the person who meets you with your ambition and success level. And she was like, that's possible? And I said, yes. And what you're in right now is an expander test. He's showing you that these other pieces you've never had before are possible. Your ex showed you that the ambition success piece is possible. The universe has given you both of these people to expand and show you that the whole picture is possible. I share all of that just to let you know, even if you're in a situation, until the line has been drawn in the sand that it is 100% a boundary you're settling for, or it's being impeded on, or whatever. In the meantime, you are actually experiencing an expansion. But the moment that the line is drawn in the sand, that's when your expansion is up in this experience. That's when it's time to potentially transition out, or, really give them the opportunity that I have to be with somebody who's as ambitious as I am. So for instance, going back to my earlier friend situation, let's say she's not unblocked enough, but she's expanded enough and she's having this opportunity come to her that could, very much so be a test like we outlined earlier. This could also be a bridge until that unblocking happens. Or she has the opportunity during the negotiation period to see if she can catch up with the unblocking. And if she can, and she's so confident that I'm expanded enough, I'm unblocked enough, it's time for her to make the aligned action to say no to this. However, if she does the work and she realizes in the unblocking piece, that's going to take me months. Like, I have a lot of work to do here. This is a bridge for her to get her so close to the opportunity that she's really wanting to call in New York for the price that she wants. I hope that's not too complicated for people. I'm sure a lot of people are tracking.
No, that was so helpful.
Yeah, well, I say that because when you're doing this work, you have to become your own pattern and energy reader. And that's why we want to do segments like this. So to give you like these beautiful examples of how to do that. So, I mean, obviously we're going to move into a few more examples and really highlight how to navigate it so you can see that nuance. But that's how you start to become your own pattern and energy reader.
2 just follow-up questions on that, Lacy. So I can just imagine people saying, well, if she really needs the ambition in the other person, is that her own shadow about ambition? Like, how can people start to differentiate? Because I can see them talking themselves out of it being a boundary. No, I'm not settling for this anymore, and being like, well, is that my shadow of like needing that? Is that my ego? And I think when you do the authentic code piece, it becomes very clear whether that's from ego or it's really part of your authentic code.
Yeah. And I think, at the end of the day, it really comes down to looking at it in your subconscious. And the way I could tell for her, just as somebody who can read energetics, that I knew it wasn't her ego is because she kept saying like a zest for life. Like she was looking for somebody who could match her passion for how much they love to do what they're doing. And I think for her specifically, just giving a specific with her, the money piece isn't as strong as every day she wakes up so lit up by the work she's doing and is so inspired that if she's going to be with somebody, she wants to make sure that they're in that same energetic. But I think a great way to look at this is through inner child shadow DIs, because you get to look at, is this truly my ego or is this just my actual needs, And so something I like to say is, as a material being in a material plane, literally, you have material needs. And personally, I am very attracted to ambitious, successful people. And if they can't meet me at that because I have so much masculine energy, I actually lose my attraction very quickly. And I've been in many relationships that's happened, namely this poor fellow that moved with me to LA from our hometown. It's a great example of this. It has nothing to do with money, but I hit the ground running. I found 2 jobs right away. I was, a hostess and a receptionist at a salon, hostess at a restaurant. He could not find a job. And I had told him before we moved, I said, you cannot move to Los Angeles for me. You absolutely cannot do that. I won't stay attracted to this. And he was like, I'm moving to, go to school, never signed up for school, couldn't find jobs. It was basically started to be baggage. And he's not the baggage. He was just in a place his authentic self and code didn't want to be. He wasn't doing things he wanted to be doing. And that's a really good example about, knowing about myself. I need somebody who is just as, masculine, for lack of a better anything. Like I'm an Aries Mars, you know what I mean? Like I am just like the moment I have an idea, I'm doing it, I'm running with it. So I think a great place, obviously these systems tell us a lot about ourselves, but really looking down in inner child and shadow DIs when you're looking at this stuff of what, is it ego or not? Because I think everything is okay as a material being. Whatever you want is okay as long as it lines up with your authentic code. So like you're saying, figuring out your authentic code and figuring out, is my decision I'm making right now out of ego or is it out of authenticity? Doing DIs will help with that. And the more you start to self-master and learn yourself, you're going to just understand what your needs are.
And for any people pleasers out there, because I could see a past version of myself say, having this thought pattern, even in the example you just gave, if you were like, well, they're so close, we have so many things in common, like we can just make it work. If you don't honor your full self and all of your needs, you're not just limiting yourself and you're not protecting the other person either. You're actually limiting them as well. Because what could happen is if you say, you know what, for my needs, I need someone who's ambitious, and you go after that. Yes, that may sting, that may hurt. It's an ending of that relationship, but that could be the impetus they need to follow their own path and their own journey and what brings them the most joy and all of those things. So never feel like you need to dim your desires for someone else or for another situation, because you living your truth is going to help inspire those other people to do the same as well.
1,000%. And I used to say this when I worked with people. I don't believe in the one. I don't believe in love at first sight. I don't believe in a lot of those things. I believe that everyone we attract into our life is either our teacher or a lesson, period. If we're in a relationship, let's say, or in a business partnership, if we continue to grow together, we will continue to be together. However, like you're saying, you have attracted this person, but give them the benefit of the doubt and the honor that they have also attracted you for a lesson, for an experience, for expansion as a mirror. And I'm going to give a really clear example of that exact same person I talked about who moved to Los Angeles with me. You want to know where he's at now? In our hometown, he owns a restaurant, 2 Airbnbs, a brewery. Like, he is killing it. He's so ambitious. I think he even got like businessman of the town or whatever award the year I moved there. And it's such a great example that when he came, he wasn't living his authentic code and his truth. LA wasn't his place. He wasn't going to thrive. He was in love with me, of course, and so he wanted to be with me here, but it wasn't his truth. So giving that benefit of the doubt, that honor to other people, if it's a friendship that you guys are growing apart right now and you're taking a break, like also honor the fact that they attracted you for this situation. You're their mirror too, even though it's going to be painful and it's going to hurt or whatever. They're also on this journey dancing with the universe to become their most whole, worthy, authentic selves. And when we take all matter and ego and everything out of everything, that's all we are for each other, our teachers and lessons. And I always look at him. He's a great example of that. He had to go his way in his own spaces. And that's where he found his ambition and his confidence and now his success.
I love that. And you can't know these things until you go forward with them. And then looking back, you're like, wow, it all worked out. But you have to take that initial step towards your own self-worth to get there.
Agreed.
So this one is from a TBM member who is calling in a partner. That's the main thing on their list. And they're having this test of a friend who habitually crosses their boundaries, demanding a lot of emotional and physical caretaking. And so at one point, this friend asked if they could take care of their home while they were away. Now, when you're doing the long division and looking at this pattern, the TBM member felt resentful, angry, small. So if we're going through our checklist, does it impede on a boundary she set for herself? Yes, because she wanted to start separating some of the codependency that was happening within the friendship. Does she feel shame or embarrassment around it? Shame that she's not honoring her needs. Does it make her settle or feel small? Absolutely, because she's not honoring her needs and feeling like she needs to people please in this situation. And then if you look at, into our, is it a hell yes or hell no? It was a hell no. She should have said, no, I can't help out this friend in this situation. Is it crossing a boundary? We went through those. Is it preying on insecurity or shadow? And so that's where it kind of starts to get interesting. So when she really looked at it, is it playing on insecurity or shadow? It's playing on the insecurity that if I don't help out this person, even though I don't want to, I will be left and abandoned. My needs are not more important than this other person because I will lose them and I will be abandoned. So what they had to do, and they did this in our journal prompts too, it really walks you through sort of what the limiting belief is and working through all of that. But knowing, okay, if that's the root, that my needs are not more important than others and they come first, otherwise I'm abandoned, then I need to see my new belief as the opposite of that. So in her situation, it was my needs are the most important thing and I'm safe to set boundaries where things don't align, even if that relationship dissolves, I'm never abandoned. So really saying, okay, if that's where I want to go, I don't have the subconscious hardware for that yet, but I'm working towards that. She'll do the DIs on it. And then her action going forward would be to say no, to say, I cannot caretake your home while you're away, or I cannot hang out on this day and listen to you just talk about your emotional problems the whole time. And so what wound up happening is she wound up people pleasing and not passing the test and being able to say no to this person. And she wound up taking care of the home anyways, but felt resentful and angry after. But it seemed to be a bridge test because she wasn't expanded enough to know that she was safe to say no, that she wouldn't be abandoned yet. So she needs more expansion in that and a lot more unblocking to really get to the root of this issue. So at least she knows, okay, I know what I should have done. I didn't do that, but now I have so much to work with going forward for next time.
She's probably done Unblock Love, but something we talk about in it is, and this is really big because love and money are always connected as well. So this could be also, when I say money, I mean home, security, job. A lot of things are connected to money. So I say that this could also be happening at work. But when you are calling in a partner, often, if you have codependent or narcissistic friendships with people who are so dependent on your energy, they are actually taking the space of your partner. So that's number one. If she's done Unblock Love, this person is literally filling her partnership space at this moment. And yes, everything you said, it is very much so a test. At this point, sure, it's maybe a bridge test, but bridges, we have to remember, usually come in the form of opportunities. When we're using a bridge, it's usually like, I'm not expanded enough for that house. I'm not expanded enough for that career yet. Opportunities tend to energetically be connected to money in a way, like security. Those are the things that are hardest for us to, in Magic Darks, pass, because it's like, fuck, what if all my money runs out? Or, oh my God, if I let this job go and I don't get another one, I won't be able to support myself. And that fun little thing that love and money are connected, we can also see in relationships a lot because like this, we could be abandoned, right? So if I let this relationship go, what if I never find something as good as this again? That used to be, a fear I would have. Or in a dating experience, well, this is the best I can get. So bridges tend to be really good for any of those circumstances, opportunity-based. In this position, we know that there's no real opportunity here that she's being presented. She's not being presented a partner, a job, or whatever.
And she's not getting expanded either.
She's not expanded.
Right.
And truthfully, the only opportunity she's being presented is to pass a test. But a really big one because it is preying on one of her deepest wounds, her deepest insecurities, right? Is I will be abandoned and not loved. That's a huge inner child wound. I know this because I have that same in different areas of life. I'm actually a great avoidant with friendships. You'd be like, go fuck yourself and I'll never talk to you again. But in other areas, I'm not so great, like family and things. So I'm glad we're breaking this down because she has more work to do on expansion and really expansion and blocking and aligned action in order to get this partnership manifestation close. But the beautiful thing is it's orbiting her. This partner's orbiting her, or else this particular friendship wouldn't be coming in so strong, so big, so prevalent. And it's going to create an unimaginable amount of situational magnetism when she can really do unblocked boundaries and learn how to follow through with the energetic portion and the action portion. I mean, a tremendous amount of magnetism. And here's where it'll get fun for her, because that magnetism, when she can really say no, sorry, or even like, I need space. I'm going to walk away for a little while at this time because I need space, which I mean, the amount of magnetism that would come out of that is, equal, if not more, to my friends who has this show opportunity happening. However, if she doesn't unblock enough and expand enough, when it comes to relationships, she'll start getting dating tests coming through after that, probably pretty good ones with her list, depending on where her true self-worth is at. But however, if she doesn't address that unblocked and expanded piece, she will not manifest the person. She could attract a bridge experience, a true actual opportunity bridge experience in dating, which I wouldn't call this, but she will not connect with that partner until she truly, truly addresses the unblocked and expanded piece. So if I were working with this person, the very first thing I would make them do is unblock boundaries right now, this second. Figure out how to truly set the right boundary or walk away. We give you complete details in that workshop, even scripts of how to do this stuff. And after she honors that, that's when I would start doing the deep work through Unblock Love. But in her circumstance, let's say she just joined the pathway today. She knows she wants to call in a relationship. I would do how to manifest, unblocked inner child, shadow, right to unblocked boundaries. Set that boundary, honor it, and then into Unblock Love. And I say that because realize, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4 workshops before Unblock Love, because that's how much groundwork needs to go into attracting this partner.
Oh my gosh. I know this person too. So this is to the T, the prescription that she needs.
And the coolest thing is you'll manifest your partner. Like you know her, you know that that's going to happen, impossible, but you know the things she has to do that.
Yeah. So exciting. I just want to restate, just so clear to everyone here, to understand if you have a bridge test opportunity in front of you. Are you getting expanded from that situation? Is it helping you see to believe or getting you closer towards the belief that you're trying to reinforce? And if it's not doing any of those things for you, if it's not expanding you, if it's not helping you further along your path and kind of broadening your horizons, it's not a bridge test. It's just a regular test.
Yeah. And if it's not an opportunity, it's not a bridge test.
Mm-hmm.
And even on the unblocked piece of it too, is it buying you time while you expand to also unblock? Those are the 3 things I would say. I would say number 1, is it an opportunity? That's how you know it might be a bridge. Number 2, is it expanding you and taking you further, seeing to believe, closer? And when we talk about the expansion piece, I like to give this outline. When I first would teach how to manifest in person, before it had a workshop or anything, I would always say it's like opening up a clock. You've grown up with clocks, you see that they tell time, but when you're finding your true expander, the big one, obviously you'll have fragments along the way, but the real piece that's going to click for expansion, it's like opening up a clock and you're seeing inside for the first time how the mechanics work. I remember Ashley Neese and I used to be good expanders for each other along the way. She would get a press piece and I would be like, oh, well, we're so similar in this way. If she can have that Vogue article, I can too. And then Vogue would come for me. So it's if it's a career thing, say you're moving from one career to another, say you're an investment banker, but you're moving into becoming a painter. It's literally apprenticing under an artist or even being their runner, being their assistant and getting to see on the day-to-day, oh, that's how they practice. That's how they price. That's how they got the relationship at that gallery. Oh, I see that that's possible. If they can do it, I can too. So that's a little bit of a tangent, but I just want to share that. Yeah. So the things there, number 1, is it an opportunity? Is it expanding you and taking you further on your path, closer to your manifestation, seeing to believe? And then on the unblocked of the trifecta, because you have to have those 3 things in motion, is it the perfect amount of time and buying the time needed to unblock before the line has been drawn in the sand? So I say the line drawn in the sand energetically, once they say, I don't want a relationship, I just want to hook up, the line has been drawn in the sand. Before that, you maybe sensed it was coming, but it was buying you time to do your unblocking and expand. But the moment that the line has been drawn in the sand, that you're now settling, that's when it's time to pivot.
I love this. Adding this to the glossary, bridge test.
I think we're literally making this up in real time. We're channeling this in real time.
It's amazing. It's so cool. It's new teachings right in the moment. So let's just recap everything we go through. So what I would suggest, and I don't know about what you think, Lacy, but I would suggest because we're talking about tests are coming up. A lot of people have recently crafted their list. They had a lot coming through. Over the next week, really pay attention to every single opportunity test, trigger test, or boundary test that is coming up, and do the work on each opportunity to see what is the root of all of them. I would guess if you're getting a bunch of tests within a short time period, they're probably related to the same root or core wound.
Yes.
And walk it through that checklist of, is it a hell yes or hell no? Is it crossing a boundary you set for yourself? How do you feel? Shame, embarrassment, settling, small? Is it preying upon an insecurity or shadow? And are you unblocked enough and expanded enough to pass this test? And if you are, take action in alignment with your highest self-worth version. And if you're not, is this the bridge test, an opportunity, and we'll put all the checklists and the journal prompts and all of that stuff in the show notes. So you guys have access and links to all of that. But walk through all of those opportunities through these checklists and really start to pattern read. What is this test telling me? How can navigating this in the way that's in alignment with where my self-worth is at right now help me get closer to my manifestation?
Amen.
Well, thank you guys so much. We're so excited to see what shakes out on the other side of all of these tests.
Yeah, I like these how-tos. I don't know what we're going to call it, but I like this.
Yeah, this is going to be a good one. And keep sharing what's coming up for you guys manifestation-wise in the community group. And maybe even I'll do, next time we record one of these, I'll do a poll in there and you guys can submit some options that we could pull and break down for you and show some patterning. So stay tuned.
Yeah, and they help us figure out which of these are most needed at this, what topic is most needed at this time. So definitely keep it flowing in the community group if you're a Pathway member.
Yes. All right. We'll see you next week, guys. Bye.
Bye.
And for our 5-star review winner for January, we have Melissa Dunn. I had too many blocks up the first time doing the first few DIs that I purchased. So instead, I started over this November and joined the Manifestation Challenge December 2021. I just wanted to share that my second time around doing Unblock Inner Child, I felt it click in my body. I really felt the healing and my desires became much more clear. It was so exciting, so I hope this information helps you for the first time around for those it may not have worked for. Just keep going. This is actually a note we got a lot from people who did the Manifestation Challenge. Maybe they haven't been as diligent with the work or they weren't showing up. Something about the community and having those live call access was so helpful. We still have the Manifestation Challenge available for anyone who hasn't signed up yet. So if you've heard everyone who has gone through and manifested on the other side of the challenge that we started back in December, you can still join. It will be available until February 28th. So you can run right from January until the end of February and start your manifestation process now. And don't forget, you can use our podcast specialty code just for listeners. Use the code EXPANDED, capital EXPANDED, for $20 off your first month of the Pathway or $20 off any a la carte. And if you're looking to do the Manifestation Challenge, you will find it in the Pathway with all of the live videos available for re-air. Looking forward to seeing what you manifest on the other side.